In business today, three things to know. First, while the markets closed lower today, U.S. equities are near all-time highs. Are we in the middle of the bull run, or is the race almost over? Then, gone flat. The downfall of diet soda explained. How did America's once popular soda pops fizzle out? And the business of cosmetics for African-American men and women in our corner office. Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Stocks snapped a four-day winning streak Thursday. The Dow and S&P 500 both pulling back from new highs. Let's take a look at the final numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down just 45 cents to 16,572. The S&P 500 down 2. The NASDAQ down 38. All indices off their lows for the day. Taking a look at stocks we're watching today, General Motors says it's hired a crisis communications expert because that's what it needs. It needs to communicate better. Previously employed in the Clinton White House in response to the recall of cars with faulty ignition switches and tied to 13 deaths. GM closing up 56 cents to 35.44. Electric car manufacturer Tesla says it's appealing New Jersey's decision to put a ban on direct sales in place in the state. Last month, the Motor Vehicle Commission changed its rules to require that all car retailers have a franchise agreement with manufacturers. Tesla down $5.29. Its stock has been sliding. And drugstore retailer Walgreens said its same-store sales rose by 3.5% in March from a year earlier, saying total drugstore sales increased 4.5% to $6.43 billion. Walgreens closing up 74 cents to 67.09. Commodities, gold pulling back, and oil over that $100 mark, up 73 cents. Turning back to the economy, just ahead of tomorrow's key report on the U.S. jobs market, the weekly jobless claim numbers are out for last week, showing an increase of 16,000 claims to a seasonally adjusted 326,000. And the U.S. trade deficit climbing to the highest level in 5 months, increasing in February to $42.3 billion, which was 7.7% above the January imbalance of just over $39 billion. Joining us now is Sam Stovall, Chief Equity Strategist with S&P Capital IQ, back here on Arise Exchange. Sam, I want to start talking about equities. We are near the highs. The question is, from all the indicators that you see, are we going to push above these highs or not?
I think we're going to push above the highs, maybe reaching between 1900 and 1920 on the S&P 500. But at the same time, I think we are due for some sort of a digestion of these gains. We've gone a very long time, 30 months, without a decline of 10% or more, and the average is 18.
If we pull back, if we have this decline, is it going to be because simply people taking money off the table, or is there fundamentals and technical indicators at work here?
I think that you're going to need to have people believe that there is a game changer out there that causes them not to want to be long equities at this point. But the question really is, will this turn into a correction or a bear market? Our belief is that it'll probably end up being a correction, a decline of 10, maybe 15% at the worst. But because of the economic trajectory, low inflation, low interest rates, and improving overall trend in unemployment, that it'll probably be a correction and not a new bear market.
Is there anything in the gains in the stock market that lead you to indicate or believe that there's economic gains that will follow from that?
Yes. I find that prices lead fundamentals.
Sure.
So when you're looking at the stocks in general, but then you're looking at the transports within the stocks, you're looking at the high beta component of the S&P 500, as well as the cyclical sectors, I think the market is sending us a message that maybe the economic data has a lot more to improve over the coming months and will do so. And right now, people are just underestimating its expected growth.
Has it been the cyclicals that are driving this market?
Yes, it has. Consumer discretionary has done relatively well, but really driving most recently have been technology, industrials, materials, whereas we've had a little bit of a fall off in some of the very defensive areas, in particular consumer staples, food, beverage, tobacco.
So then if you want to become defensive in this market, do you flip it around and say, get out of technologies and get into traditional defensive areas?
Well, there's an old saying, sell in May and go away. I never like to go away. In the summer, you usually do better if you gravitate toward the more defensive areas. You could look to something like the S&P Low Volatility, SPLV ETF, or the defensive staples and healthcare. The old saying is when the going gets tough, the tough go eating, smoking, and drinking. And if they overdo it, they have to go to the doctor.
That's right. Everybody needs all of those, with the exception of maybe the smoking and drinking part, right? Okay, so we have some economic news coming out. We have the jobs numbers tomorrow. What impact will that have, do you think, on the markets? I
think that's a pivotal data point, that right now the consensus is for about 200,000 new jobs, unemployment going down to 6.6%. I wouldn't be surprised if, in a sense, the whisper number that at least is in the back of people's minds is something higher than 200,000, maybe 210, 225. So we need to see a number like that for Wall Street to feel impressed.
And again, it's the number of people going back to work that's important here, not really the employment rate. Is that correct? Because, because there's a question of how many people may come back because they start looking for work again.
Well, it's like peeling the leaves of an artichoke. You know, you're going to check out the heart, and I think the heart is the participation rate. If we start to see the U6, that's the broadest measure of unemployment, underemployment, as well as those who have just quit looking for a job, if that number is improving as well, that could be a positive sign.
As far as the markets are concerned, the Fed Chair Janet Yellen really put employment really back in focus this week, did she not, with her comments about how the stimulus is here for the long term?
Yes, I think what she was basically saying is that we're going to continue to unwind the most recent quantitative easing, that the tapering will take place by the end of this year, but don't assume that we're going to start raising rates exactly 6 months later. So I think what she was doing was taking back some of the misstatements that she made in the press conference after the recent FOMC meeting.
Some missteps, and she kind of wanted to qualify that and nail that down a little bit.
Exactly.
Sam Stovall, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay, I was going to say have a good weekend, but we have another day to go. Coming up, why Microsoft could be poised to make a serious comeback and makes us wonder, should competitors finally start taking notice when Arise Exchange comes back? Because we live in a global, interconnected world, business news no longer stops when the markets close on Wall Street. And what we've discovered over the past few years of the financial crisis is that events and news that happen even in the smallest countries impact the United States and the world at large. As we bring together experts and analysts and thought leaders and CEOs and companies across many industries to not only provide the macroeconomic view, but news everyday people can use.
Arise News is a different kind of network. We are able to tell our own stories, and we're able to cover stories in a way that other media outlets don't do. We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well. Arise News is a place where we can tell stories in an interesting, factual, inclusive way like no one else in the business can.
Microsoft making headlines this week after unveiling its voice-activated digital competition to Apple's Siri named Cortana. And last week, the company's new CEO, Satya Nadella, said it's bringing Office to the iPad. These are sweeping developments, and they leave many saying today that Microsoft, get this, Microsoft making a comeback. The competition is on alert. Technology expert and Quantum LLC CEO Ari Zaldan is on the phone to talk with us a little bit about this. Ari, we have not for a very, very long time spoken about innovation at Microsoft. Is this innovation?
Hi, Andrew. How are you? It's great to be here. The answer is it innovation? Yes. And Microsoft is trying very, very hard to be able to catch up with both Google and the iPhone. So, we haven't heard much about Microsoft in the whole software space, like you said, in the past couple of years. But now they're making headlines pretty frequently. And if you look at the stock price, stock is trading at an all-time high of about $41 a share.
Yeah, and people have to remember that the stock was in the doldrums, dead money for more than a decade. Talk to us about the new CEO. He is coming in and he has reversed many of the policies that his predecessor, Steve Ballmer, had. And one of them, of course, is bringing Office, which is Microsoft's most popular product. It's what drives the revenue at Microsoft, to the Apple iPad. Both competition for iPad was also a validation of who has won the tablet awards.
Right, and I mean, I think that this is game changing right now for the company. I mean, getting software, Microsoft Office software, onto the Apple's iPads and all their other tablets. I mean, it's a huge game changer for them, and I think they're really excited. I mean, look, the new CEO, he's on board, he's going on full force, and he needs to start competing more aggressively right now for market share, including the smartphone space. Right now, Microsoft only has about 7% of market share within the smartphone space, and according to a recent IDC report, they're hopefully going to be looking at a larger, probably 20 or 30% share over the next few years.
So the question, though, now is the new CEO able to change the culture within the organization where Microsoft can actually innovate, meaning bring game-changing products to the market and not just sort of the same old stuff, which certainly, prints a lot of money. Office is great, but that's where the weakness also is for this company.
Right. I don't think they have a choice. I think they're going to have to in order to stay afloat. It's not so much like it was, 5 or 10 years ago. They were the only game in town. Whether they innovated or didn't innovate was almost secondary. Today, in order to compete within the space, they've got to do it right now.
Do you get a sense, Ari, if you have had a chance to speak with people at Microsoft, that there's sort of a fresh air that's coming into the place, that this is really sort of the exciting times again for the company?
I think so. I think you're going to see a huge upswing in terms of not only the products that are coming out, but management too. And again, whenever you have a turnover with new management, there's every manager, every CEO brings its own specific culture to the place. So changes are good, especially in the tech space. And I think, look, Microsoft is still the 800-pound gorilla in this space. They just need to do it better and quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah, and if you believe the stock price that it leads fundamentals and Microsoft is onto something, you mentioned quicker and better and more efficient. Can the company get there? That's the question. Can it do so without sort of breaking itself up a little bit, even if it did it internally?
Well, I think for that, I think the answer is, can they do it? Yes. Will they do it? Only time will tell. And I think for them, very specifically for the space that they're in, I think it's going to be sink or swim. But I think the new CEO is going to be able to make some extremely effective changes in the near term.
Ari Zoldan, CEO from Quantum LLC. Thank you so much. Feel better. I know
My
you've been
pleasure.
sick.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks.
Time now for our business ticker stories making news around the world. Ford, Apple, and Pfizer are just a few of the major U.S. corporations forming a new patent-focused lobby group. The new lobby, called Partnership for American Innovation, will push back against proposed congressional legislation fighting patent assertion entities known as patent trolls, companies that don't actually invent things but get patents to sue for infringement and collect license fees. The partnership says blocking these companies could also stifle truly innovative ones. The lobby will also fight against proposals to make software and biotechnology impossible to patent. The FBI has opened an investigation into Citigroup Bank's Mexican financial services over a potential $400 million in fraud. The investigation follows Citigroup's February announcement that it found fraudulent practices in Banamex, it's a Mexican oil services subsidiary. And today, analysts downgraded Citibank stock from a buy to neutral. Pacific Gas and Electric could face record fines after it was convicted of violating safety regulations in the lead up to a 2010 gas explosion in the San Francisco Bay Area. The blast killed 8 and leveled 38 homes in San Bruno, California. PG&E was indicted on 12 violations of federal pipeline safety law violations after regulators say it knowingly relied on erroneous or incomplete information. The company could face, get this, $2.25 billion in fines if approved by the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. However, San Bruno Mayor Jim Ronay is asking for $3.8 billion in penalties. Ads on the popular social media site Instagram could cost advertisers up to $1 million a month. Instagram came up with the price after conducting a test last year with several big-name companies, including Adidas, General Electric, and Michael Kors. Instagram announced last week it now has 200 million users, up from 150 million users that it reported 6 months ago. And more Americans are choosing to work more than take time off, according to a new study from Glassdoor.com. They say employees are wary of taking time off and use less than half of the time accrued. The study also found 61% of workers are still working even when we are on vacation. Workers say the reason for not taking time off: fear of losing their job or falling behind. Soda sales in the U.S. continue to go flat, extending a decade-long decline. And diet sodas, which account for nearly 1/3 of all U.S. soda sales, are suffering even steeper drops than their full-calorie counterparts. Soda is also fighting a bad image, with health advocates blaming it for fueling weight gain. To talk more about the fall-off weighing on the beverage industry is Tom Perko from Bevmark. That is a beverage and food consulting firm. Tom, welcome back to Arise Exchange.
Hi. Hi.
So I have to tell you something, just a personal story. When I was growing up, my dog, which was a Bouvier, starred in one of the first Diet Coke commercials. So we got a case of Diet Coke.
My dog story?
Yes, we got a case of Diet Coke.
I'm in the wrong.
The dog I don't think got anything. So let me.
The dog ate my Diet Coke. Yeah. Right.
So what is going on?
Right.
What is going on here? Because this country
oh.
used to be driven by soda.
It's not anymore. It's
No?
not anymore. It's not a sweet story. It's actually an extremely interesting story. It's a great business story, but it's also a story about our culture and about how people perceive things. We're going through a major transition. The global leaders in beverage, Coke and Pepsi, are staring at something that they never thought would happen. We've seen now a decline in soft drinks over the past 9 years in a row. And we've seen huge drops in diet drinks. The reason is because consumers have kind of caught on that these things aren't, consumers perceive them, they're my clients, I'm with the farming, consumers perceive them not to be good for you. And if they're not good for you, why are you drinking them?
Tom, is that the case? Is it a health issue, or is it because, compared to other things out there, maybe they just don't taste as good?
Well, it's everything came in at once. All these currents all came and collided in the same spot. Seriously, what happened was the brands are getting tired, and people don't want to hear that, the iconic brands. The brands are getting old, and people are getting bored. New drinkers want choice. They want something else. They want the same old thing every day. The obesity epidemic is huge. So we're dealing with diabetes and we're dealing with heart disease. Now we have this tremendous scare going through the media, and people have heard that diet drinks in particular may cause heart problems. There are all kinds of negative consequences.
And lead to weight.
Put all that together, and it's a disaster.
It's a disaster, and lead to weight gain itself. Now there's talk that drinking diet soda makes you more hungry, more susceptible to weight gain. The question is,
metabolic changes, right?
Do you think this is fair? And if either way, how can the beverage industry and Coca-Cola and Pepsi fight back in the public arena?
Well, we advised them, and I've got to tell you quite frankly that we've advised them not to fight back. I think when they start sounding defensive, they sound a little bit like big tobacco, which is where nobody wants to go. You've got to be a good guy, and Coke in particular is always this. These are wonderful drinks, they're lifestyle drinks, they make you feel good, they don't do you any harm at all. Now suddenly there's this shadow, and if Coke isn't good, it's polar bears and Father Christmas and all that, but if Coke is not good, you lose trust, and this trademark is worth $1 zillion, but if you can't trust Coke or Pepsi or Dr. Pepper, Snapple, et cetera, then you have a very serious change in paradigm. We're going through a transition, and even though they try to sell all beverages in their portfolio, we're really looking at something where they still depend primarily upon cola. And you can sell them in the foreign markets, but those foreign markets are catching on really fast that they all have obesity there as well. They're catching on really fast that what's happening in the U.S. and Europe and Mexico, et cetera, is happening there too. So we're losing confidence in these brands that were like a religion.
Where is the competition?
Big deal, yeah.
Where is the competition coming? I know energy drinks is one of them, and I can't believe people think energy drinks are good for you. They are loaded in sugar.
That's very interesting, because when you ask me what's going on here, the other thing is that we're moving away from drinks that are empty lifestyle drinks that are sugar water with bubbles primarily on the soft drink side. We're moving into drinks that are functional, that have benefits. So people are now saying, okay, I buy this and I drink it and I'm thirsty, I get hydration, but what is it doing for me? And that's why we're moving away from the soft drink model. We're moving over to all these other things, be they caffeine delivery systems like energy drinks, or they be certain kinds of waters or certain kinds of juices, not pure juice, that's very fattening too, but all these other new things that are functional. The future of the beverage industry, and Coke and Pepsi know this, but they're trying to convert, is drinks that have a purpose, that have a function beyond just being empty drinks like we've grown up with, where you drink them because they're sweet and they're pleasurable, but they don't mean anything. Now we want meaning in our drinks.
And do any of these sort of hybrid diet sodas, is that possibly going to make any inroads here?
Not much, because they're still using the sweeteners. We haven't found a silver bullet in terms of a natural sweetener that can compete with sugar. They don't taste very good, and we have all these dire consequences we read about with all the new studies about them not being healthy.
You know, I wonder if sort of Coca-Cola changed its formula today and not 25 or so years ago. And if you remember all that uproar and there was a public outcry and it was really the public that got them to change it, if that would have made a difference. Okay, I understand, however, that we can't ask Tom Parko that because we lost the window. I will say one of our crew members had a good comment that as long as there is rum, there will be Coca-Cola. Ahead, why an angry and alcoholic court stenographer may have comprised many cases in court and why he's our favorite person of the day when we come back.
Well, Arise is the only network that really covers comprehensively the African diaspora. It gives people in other parts of the world of color a chance to know about people here in the United States, us to know about them, and the world to know about us. So it's kind of an educational experience for everybody involved. Getting to know people through stories, through personal stories. You really get a chance to know what people are actually all about, what communities are about. How are we different? But more importantly, what commonalities we all share.
The great thing about Arise Entertainment 360 is that we cover the 360 of entertainment, food, fashion, lifestyle, culture. We're able to cover it all. And the thing I love most about the show is we're able to do a stunning combination of high and low. So we can talk about Rihanna on the red carpet, but we can also speak about high art with people like Sanford Biggers and Hank Willis. We actually spend quality time with our guests and we really get to know them. It's really intriguing because we get a 360 look at our guests.
Time now for our favorite person of the day when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, it is a New York City court stenographer who, instead of taking copious notes recording trials, instead just typed, "I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job," over and over again. Daniel Kokansky apparently typed the gibberish for some 30 cases until anyone noticed. That calls into questions whether these convictions will now stand up. Kokansky has since been fired, and judges are trying to reconstruct the cases for the record. The ex-stenographer's father says his son was an alcoholic, which cost him his wife and apparently his sanity. As for Kokansky, he says he doesn't know what anyone is talking about. The notes, he says, were all fine. The New York Post compared Kokansky to the character played by Jack Nicholson on the 1980 movie The Shining, where an off-the-rails writer typed, remember this, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." No word, not sure, in this case, if the courthouse was haunted, but Daniel Kokansky, who is apparently now a hero to working people everywhere, is our favorite person of the day. I like my job, I like my job. Let's all say it together. I like my job, I like my job. Next, from Stanford University to the skincare industry, our corner office is next. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Definitely be improved when reflecting diversity.
A lot of mainstream news, they don't dive into it.
Who wants to hear about negativity all the time?
They only show what they think people want to know and not what people really should know.
World-based stories. That's what I enjoy the most.
I think diversity of news is important to the world so that everybody will be aware of their surroundings and what is happening today.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.
I think media and reporters have a lot to answer for.
AIDS, hunger, people not having running water, the things that we just take for granted.
I think the most important issues in the world today are education and poverty.
Terrorism and war, I guess, is always. It's always an issue, and the quality of life of certain groups of people in certain areas.
I think inequality.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
In today's Corner Office, the business of skincare. The industry is raking in billions of dollars internationally, but with a market that's oversaturated, very few products actually cater to women and men of color. Our next guest realized the demand and created a product especially for this market. Tristan Walker is the founder and CEO of Walker & Company, and he is here on Arise Xchange to talk about skincare. But I want to talk to you first because you're somewhat of a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So you started at Foursquare. You were the director of business development. So how do you go from a technology play to a real-world retail play?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I've changed much. We're just putting a technology wrapper around style and grooming. The one thing that I learned at Foursquare is the importance of authenticity and brand building, and we're just bringing that to the fold for Bevel here.
Okay, so how did you decide you want to get into the cosmetic space?
Yeah.
Not a lot of men go into the cosmetic space. This has got to be something completely, did you have any background in it? Did you practice with your wife?
It started out of pure frustration, right? For the past 15 years of my life before I started Bevel, I couldn't shave. Yeah. Every single way that I encountered facial hair removal was terrible.
This is a problem for African American men.
Huge problem, specifically because we have coarse, curly hair, right? We can't use multi-blade razors because they cut the hair beneath our skin. We can't use depilatory creams because they burn our skin, they stink up our bathroom. And we can't really use electric clippers too much because you don't get as close a shave. It's irritable. It just does not work. So there had to be a better way, and I felt, Bevel was the right way.
Okay, so who discovered it? How did you figure this was the solution? How did you come about this?
Yeah, so just a ton of research. I realized through my research back in 1901, a gentleman by the name of King Gillette had this really brilliant insight, and he said, barbers for hundreds of years have been using this thing called a straight razor to great efficacy. It cuts the hair level with your skin. You don't have to worry about any ingrown hairs or razor bumps. He had this fantastic insight that it's very hard to use a straight razor at home. So he wanted to have a take-home solution for men to actually get the efficacy of a straight razor, and he created a safety razor here. So we just wanted to create a new version of a safety razor. So again, you use the safety razor, you input a single blade, not a multi-blade, into the razor head, and then you close it, and then you wrap it together, take it home, and just shave on your face. That combined with the right pre-shave oil, restoring balm, shaving cream, and shaving brush.
And we just talked about patents during the show. Do you have a patent on this?
We do not have a patent on it.
So I don't want to sound like Shark Tank because the Shark Tank, they're like, do you have a patent on this?
Absolutely. No, so this is actually a very great question. So the story goes 20 years after he filed a patent for the safety razor, they lose the patent. And many would argue today that the reason we have 2, 3, 4, 62 blade razors today is purely due to patent protection. Which is why domestically it's not as popular for the company internationally.
Okay, beyond shaving, some other products that
that's the goal.
Basically the goal. So how do you now get this into the retail stores? Because you have to compete against the big guys, and the big guys buy up all the space.
Yeah. Well, right now our solution is online direct to consumer. Right, so we get around the offline distribution.
You're going to bypass the
That's correct. That's correct. We're starting with some offline distribution through some local barbershops and specialty retailers, and eventually we'll get to mass. But the focus right now is online direct to consumer.
And how are you finding that? How are you reaching them online?
It's great. Social media has been fantastic for us. We also have a digital magazine called Bevel Code, which is really the first and only digital magazine focused on style and grooming for men of color. So we reach our customers that way, and just pure word of mouth.
Is it difficult talking to men in general about skincare? I mean, we're getting a little bit more flexible about it, but...
Well, I think the important part about what we're trying to do is solve a really important problem that's existed in the community for a long time. Right. No one solved this problem. And we've created really the first and only end-to-end shaving system specifically
and to that extent, are there social media platforms just for African American men that you can reach?
No, but when you think about things like Twitter, and how folks over-index in the usage of that platform, Facebook, Instagram. I think we've done a really good job reaching folks in that way.
Okay, so what's the next goal over the next 5 years for the company?
Yeah, so we want to, at least for Walker & Company, we exist to make health and beauty simple for people of color. And we're only going to build brands that solve problems. The first is this razor bump, razor burn issue. We think about things like vitamin D deficiency, natural hair transitioning, hyperpigmentation. We're going to develop brands to fix those problems and tell stories along the way.
Okay, Tristan Walker, thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Tomorrow on Xchange, theft in the office place costs employers billions each year around the world. They don't just take pens, folks. We'll take a look at how one creative invention is stopping thieves at work in their tracks. Taking a look at the markets. A 4-day winning streak snapped on Wall Street, all red across the board. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Xchange.